We met at church, actually, is where we met. I we were in San Luis Obispo. That's where I went to school. And I wasn't raised in the church. I got saved when I was in college. And it was a Church of God in Christ church, which is a typically Black denomination, but in San Luis Obispo, there aren't a whole lot of Black folk. So up to Cal Poly on Friday nights, they had a variety night service, and a friend of mine invited me there. And so I got saved there. And then, I don't know, a few years after I'd been there, I sang in the choir. And so the choir would sit in the choir stand behind the pastor. And I saw Fred walk in one day. I was like, oh, who's he? And
I walked in and I felt immediately like it was a meat market. You walk in, you see all the choir behind the pastor, and they immediately start saying, Lord, is that the one?
that is not
Is
what I
that the
said.
one? Is that the one? Is that my answer to prayer? And no, I'm just joking.
What
So,
did you say? Oh, got it.
It's just
so
so funny, you know.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, to be completely transparent, I had walked away from the Lord kind of disillusioned, trying to figure it out. And then I was going through a separation with my first wife, and it wasn't working out. So that drew me back to the church. And a friend of mine who I knew on a job invited me to go to House of Prayer. That was the name of the church. Business. And then this CIA agent started. So anyway, I want to say for about maybe 8 months or so. It was all casual, cordial. And then um, we met one another on a Friday night, and it was Friday night service. Afterwards, the pastor's son would cook some food like chicken and waffles and things like that, taquitos, tacos, nachos, that kind of stuff. And so she was off to the side in this kind of fellowship area, and there was these twins, a boy and a girl, and she was kind of looming over them, and I saw her talking to the family, and I think you babysat them maybe
Mhm.
once or twice, and so I kind of walked up looking at how the conversation was going, and that's kind of how we started to talk to one another. And I think it was at that point I invited her out to lunch in a friendly way.
We started with coffee.
Coffee.
Yeah.
Okay. If she says it's coffee, then it's coffee. And then
Uh, now,
I think you guys are frozen.
for-
Can you guys hear us? Your video is frozen and your audio is, yeah. There we go. You're back now.
yeah,
Was ours frozen?
What
yours was frozen.
You were frozen and you were going, what? Yep.
Okay. So where did I leave off? So on the side of there was a fellowship hall Friday night. They used to serve food. And then I saw Diane talking to the parents of the twins, and she had babysat them. And so I was kind of looking off from the side going, this looks interesting. Hmm. And then I kind of walked up and introduced myself, and then we just started talking. Found out she babysat the kids, and then I guess I shot my shot. I guess it was, hey, let's have coffee, and she said, sure. Oh my God, sure.
I thought you were going to tell the story about when you became a member.
Well, that too, but that was kind of the original one, and then like I kept going, and and then there was a point in time where I had been going for a while, and then I decided to become a member. And like in black church, they make you come down in the front of the congregation and everybody's got to come and make their way and say hello, welcome into the fold, young lamb. And then and then everybody was given these kind of A-frame Christian hugs, but Diane, her hug was different. Like it wasn't an A-frame hug, it was like this, and then she hugged me and she put her hand in the small of my back and pulled real hard. And I knew that was a sign. And I was like, is that a sign, Lord? Okay, we'll see where this goes. Yeah, yeah.
All
And
right.
let's just be friends. She was getting her master's. I was just starting school, and then I think over time, a lot of details, but over time it progressed into something we thought was going to be uh, formidable.
I mean, that night he was talking about with the kids, he was like playing with the kids, and I was like, oh, that's cute. He's, you know, easy around kids because I was teaching at the time. I was teaching fifth grade. And I was like, that's cool because I think that's a great quality to have is someone who's comfortable around kids and if kids kind of engage with the adult, to me that's a sign like they sense their authenticity. And so that was kind of what I noticed in Fred, but he was funny and he was engaging. But one of the things as we kind of started hanging out more, one of the things I remember most about what he said was that he really appreciated hearing my perspective, even if it was different than his, because
Mhm.
it would be boring to have a relationship where both parties had to think the same way, which that was new to me in a relationship because growing up, my dad was always right. If you didn't, like that was kind of the expectation is that you aligned with, his perspective. And so I was like, huh, I kind of like that about him.
You guys noticed she said nothing about my looks.
Ugh.
Never looked. Said
Well, he
zero.
had a high top
Zero.
fade. He was
Zero.
trying to fade, and I was like, wow, okay, he takes care of his hair.
So I guess she was reading my mind or something. But I mean, I'm gonna be honest. She had a nice booty. I was supposed to be in church and everything, but I was like,
It, his sister said, how'd you get a black girl booty? I do
uh,
not have a black girl booty. How'd you get one?
I said, cute face that matches. I guess I'll get to know her mind. I could sense she loved the Lord, right? More than me. And so that's what drew me to her. But then as I got to know her, it was clear that there was a lot of intelligence behind the looks too, which I found to be engaging as well. And so it was easy to talk to her. And I think in looking for a person, someone to share your life with, I was thinking to myself, all right, I kind of been doing it my way. Let's see how the Lord works in this. So,
So, so
Richard Sherman, I think when you all were teaming up with Pastor Sherman and we did the Midtown class, um, and it was the first time, and I think it was when the two of you were teaming up with him and we got done with the class. That was the most engaging part. And so I would say that the two of you in your connection with the crowd and your connection with us. And I also want to say that I thought you thought I was funny. So I said, you know what, I can hang out with them.
You remember that?
Yeah, 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 yeah. And I think I called you Royce or something, or yeah, drew me in. So it was a natural evolution to get where we are today. So How about
And
you?
I
And
think so. Just kudos to both of you because I had wanted for us for a long time to be part of some type of couples ministry. And Fred would be like, no, I'm not interested. Like, we had gone to some small groups before, and he'd be like, I have nothing in common with them. I don't connect with them.
Oh,
No, I'm not going to do that. And I
yawn.
was just praying, like, God, please. So then when he said yes to that marriage enrichment class,
Yeah.
and then we met you and you invited us, he was like, yeah, they seem pretty cool. I'll go. And I was like, shocked, like, what? And so the connection with you two has been great because it's
Hmm.
like down to earth, real, authentic Christians just
Hmm.
living life, but not like judging others or holier than thou or feeling like you have to do X, Y, or Z to be part of the group, you know. I think that was a real blessing and a gift. And one of the things that Fred was like, yeah, I'm okay with going there. I'm okay to do that because they seem cool. Like, you have that shirt that says, I'm a little bit hood and a little bit holy.
it's like, right, what's the next question you got?
I would say, number one, there are times where if you're going through marital, you think you're all by yourself, right? You're in isolation. And then your perspective is we're really, really sucking at this, right? We're terrible. And then when you get into the community of people, you find out through perspective that other people are going through the exact same thing, maybe even worse, right? So then also through that, not that I look at other people's situation and try to make myself feel better, but it allows you to gain perspective in the sense that our issues are not singular to us, right? And so when you're talking to other people and then all of a sudden they're talking about the same stuff, you go, oh, wow, okay. They're dealing with the same kind of issues. So maybe we're not alone. And so let's just all suck together.
Kind of along the same lines, I've said for, I don't know, the past few years that um, especially women, but couples too, if we were more open and transparent about our journeys, I think everyone would be a lot healthier. Raised as a Christian as a kid, and then having kids and wanting to raise them as Christians. The church we used to be at, there was so much judgment around, well, if your kids are doing this, then you weren't doing that, you know, and it was just like, I never felt safe enough to share the truth of what was happening or, you know, and so I think, you know, kind of piggybacking on what Fred said, that the community offers a place for people to be open and transparent about their journeys. And I think if we are willing to be vulnerable enough to do that, that it just will foster healthier marriages, healthier churches,
Mhm.
healthier communities, because the enemy loves to use isolation to really pull us down.
Yeah.
And if we're not open and willing to be vulnerable to share, we'll continue to stay in isolation.
Hmm.
And that's where it's the enemy's playground. So, you know, I'm continuing to contemplate and think about how important it is to be present when we're with people and let them know that we're listening and that we care. And because that's how God designed us for connection. So the more we can be present and connected and vulnerable and open, we'll have healthier marriages, healthier churches, healthier communities.
Okay, podcast lady. Dang. With your profound
It,
self.
it's
That's gonna
my
go viral.
it's my ponderings as I, you know, do all the work that I'm doing. I just think it's so true. And just coming from the church where we were, like if your kids, you know, I mean, a recent interaction with somebody that I hadn't seen in probably 10 years. you know, I mentioned something about one of our kids. She's like, well, that's what happens when you send them to secular college. I was like, yeah, and this is why I no longer attend that church, you know? And it's just, I think it's just, I think Christians are missing it a lot because judgment comes in and then people feel like they're less than or they've done something wrong or, you know, there's a lot to that. So,
That you
Oh,
want to marry.
well, I knew early
With the
on.
big
hi,
boy.
Judy.
Yep. So I knew early on. Here's the funny part. I knew so far in advance that I was about to say the L word, and Diane was like, don't say that. Don't.
Not yet.
Not yet. Don't. And I was like, she said you could say like, but don't say the part. Starting to like fall in, and she put the brakes on it. So I knew. Um, I had a feeling that this was very different. She was different. She was checking the boxes in my mind. So yeah, so I knew early on. Maybe too early. I think it could be that could be scary too. Especially if you're treading along. If I had to put a timestamp on it, I would say maybe a year into it, to the dating, I knew. So
Yeah, I don't know if I remember the actual timeline, but I was tentative because I'd just been in a really bad relationship and the guy was a con artist really. And so I was super like when Fred said, I'm separated, we're getting divorced. I was like, okay, so let's just be friends. Like let's really develop this relationship and see if it's from God. So we prayed and fasted and my, dad uh, was not happy about our relationship, and so I knew those dynamics were going to play into our relationship as it became more serious. So that was another part that was kind of a challenge as we negotiated how serious we were becoming and when were we going to say we're girlfriend boyfriend, when are we thinking we're going to be engaged? And so we dated for 4 years before we got married. So it was a intentionally slow process.